Hello and welcome to the third lecture of Python concepts. Here we'll discuss on variables and data types such as strings and numbers. In the previous lecture, we have actually introduced the concept of variables, how to define variables and how to check the types of the variables. And we have introduced our first hello world print statement and written our first code. So it was kind of an unorganized introduction. And this lecture is dedicated to variables and data types in an organized way. So just let's get to kind of a flashback. We have written our first hello world code with the print statement, and we have learned how to define a string type variable and name it like message and then print it. And also we have explored how the other types of variables can be. For example, we have defined integers and we have defined floating point numbers. And we have also given a disclaimer like we should avoid obvious errors by avoiding using keywords like for, if, or div, such kind of keywords which are actually used in Python. And these are some outputs of our preliminary codes. So there were several types of data, and we can define different types of variables. One very popular type of variables is strings, which are actually characters, and we can define those as in one quote, or in single quotes or double quotes, whatever it is, and Python will recognize it as a string. For example, here we have defined a string called myString, where these characters, some characters, including the white space, is included. And we have shown how myString is by using the print statement, and it's showing some characters. And there are several methods that you can apply to strings or other types of variables. For example, here, we have actually named a string as my name, and its first last, you can see that the first character of each word is capitalized. And we can apply several methods. For example, upper method, which converts all the characters in the string to upper letters, capitalized letters. And we can also apply lower methods. For example, if we use a print statement, and inside the print statement, if we use myname.lower, then it will actually convert all the letters into small letters. So these are some kind of popular usage of different methods on strings. Now let's come to concatenating strings, which is also a very popular usage of methods on strings. For example, we have defined John as first name and Smith as last name. So the full name you can imagine as John Smith. So in order to print the full name, we have to use full name is equal to first name plus last name. And if we print the full name, then it will actually concatenate the two strings with each other. And you can see that it has actually printed John Smith, but there is no space here. So in order to incorporate the space, we can actually use this. We can actually include a space inside that and define it as full name. Now we can see that this the white space is between the first name and last name. And the last thing I would like to highlight on strings is how to avoid syntax errors. You can see that whatever it is inside of a single quote or double quote is considered a string. But what if it contains an apostrophe? Sometimes it will create a trouble, sometimes it will not. If you define the string as inside a double quote, it will not create any problem. For example, here it has actually printed my name's James Bond with the apostrophe. But if you had used a single quote, then Python would not recognize it, because when the apostrophe occurred, it would think that the string ends here. So if you run this code, it would say an error, invalid syntax. So you can see that the syntax errors or other kind of errors in Python are kind of self-explanatory. So in this occurrence, you can avoid this kind of occurrences by using double quotes, so that you can actually use the apostrophe inside your string. And another type of data is integers. You can see that you can do the addition, subtraction, multiplication, or division just as you do in a calculator, and it will show the output. For example, 1 + 1 is equal to 2, or you can define something as you have done for the strings. For example, result is equal to 3, and we can actually print the result. So we can see that this is 3, and we can also see the type of result that is int. So it's an integer. And same goes for floats, the floating point numbers. You can do same kind of addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division as you have done for integers. And it will approximate according to what is defined for floating numbers. And the last thing I'd like to highlight here is how to avoid typing errors when you're using different types of variables. For example, you have defined an integer called age, which is 10, and you have defined a string called greeting, and happy birthday, your age, something like that. So let's say you want to send a greeting to someone who has just turned 10 years old, and you would like to print this greeting. So if you use the concatenation of the strings, you can see that there's an error, and in this error, it is a type error, and it is showing that you can only concatenate string, not integer to string. The error is occurring because you were trying to incorporate an integer inside a string. You are trying to mix up numbers with a string, so it is not allowing something like that. In order to avoid this, what you can do is that after greeting plus age, you can actually convert this integer into a string by defining it as a string. And after that, you can say, you can see that it's actually printing what you have intended to. Happy birthday, you are age 10. Now this 10 is not an integer. It has actually converted this age variable into a string, and then concatenated it after the greeting string. So as a whole, you have been able to print the whole sentence. So that's what I had to share about the different kinds of variables and data types like strings and numbers. And the next lecture would be on lists. See you there.